Super Mario Odyssey is a game I've waited a long time to play. Despite being a massive Mario and Nintendo fan, I skipped out on the Switch generation. With the Switch 2 though, I'm back on track and playing through the classics I missed. I've finally completed Odyssey and I've got a lot of thoughts, some of which may be a little polarizing. Just to put things into perspective, the Super Mario series is amongst my favorite gaming franchises of all time. Super Mario World specifically is where I really got my feet wet, but Mario 64 was just as formative for me. I'll be talking more comprehensively about these games in future videos, but to be succinct, I love them. I think these games and the Mario series at large secured the platformer as one of my all-time favorite genres. In fact, when I think about video games, the first image that pops into my head is a character moving right and jumping up and down. It's such a simple, pure experience. This is gaming, baby. I've played every 3D Mario platformer all the way through Super Mario 3D World, if you count that one, so Odyssey was my only blind spot until now. I knew a bit about Odyssey before jumping in, but for the most part, I really had no idea what to expect. Where better to start when discussing a Mario game than with the controls? I don't often dig into the tangible controls when unpacking games on the channel, but with platformers, the feel of the game is particularly important. Unsurprisingly, Mario controls like a dream in Odyssey. You've got your triple jump, long jump, backflip thing, you know the drill. Anything you'd want Mario to do, he can probably do here. Beyond the moveset though, the simple process of running and jumping with Mario feels pitch perfect. This may seem like an easy thing to achieve, but play enough platformers and you'll come to see that nailing the feel is incredibly difficult and equally as important. No matter how strong your level design is, if the character doesn't feel right, nothing else really matters. It's the predicate for the entire experience and is rock solid here in Odyssey. Of course, Mario's moveset couldn't be exactly the same as past games. Odyssey incorporates a key new move, the ability to throw Mario's hat. That may sound trivial, but you're not just throwing any hat, you're throwing Cappy, a sentient hat-like creature that decides to perch himself on Mario's head after his standard hat is shredded by Bowser's ship. Cappy possesses the rather powerful ability to control anything he sits upon, so in Super Mario Odyssey, if you want to be a Goomba, you can be a Goomba, or a Cheep Cheep, or a dinosaur, or a rock. You can't be everything, but there are dozens of creatures and items that you can control. With as familiar as Mario's moveset feels at this point, it only makes sense that Nintendo EPD would experiment with transforming him. All of the various creatures and objects have their own individual moveset, but most all of them feel relatively rudimentary compared to Mario proper. The mechanic, though, does a great job of keeping things fresh, as each transformation functions so distinctly from the last. You'll never have to go long before finding a new one, which gives you a chance to learn yet another new mechanic of some kind. It's worth noting, though, that some transformations are more engaging than others. The T-Rex, for example, is really cool and a big spectacle, but actually running around in dinosaur form loses its novelty fairly quickly. Ultimately, no form feels better to control than Mario himself, which makes transforming feel like a supportive element of the experience as opposed to the defining factor. No matter what form you're in, your goal remains the same in Super Mario Odyssey. Track down as many power moons as you can to power up your newly acquired ship so you can chase down Bowser and rescue Peach. It's a tale as old as time at this point, but the manner in which you're going about this rescue functions quite a bit differently here. I view 2D and 3D Mario as essentially two separate franchises. They function very differently from each other in many ways, but the core distinction is the structure of the levels. In a 2D Mario title, you're racing to the end of a largely linear level to grab onto that elusive flagpole or some rough equivalent. It's a straightforward romp, one that I'll discuss more in a future video, but in a 3D Mario game, you're typically let loose into a much more open level, in search of a power star, sun sprite, or in this case, moon. In past 3D Mario games, say 64 for example, you'd pick a star you wanted to aim for and then jump into the level. Depending upon your selection, the level may actually change to fit the context of that particular star. Levels are revisited multiple times as each holds multiple stars. The structure has mostly remained the same through each entry, but things look very different here in Odyssey. Unlike previous games, grabbing a moon no longer sends you out of the level. Instead, Mario celebrates and then moves right along to find the next one. Now, this may sound like nothing more than a minor convenience, but it exists for a specific reason. Odyssey features a massive amount of moons. Mario 64 and Galaxy both contain 120 stars, for example, but in Odyssey, you can hunt down hundreds and hundreds of moons. It's an overwhelming number of collectibles, and as you can imagine, having to travel back to the menu after getting each one would get old really fast. The huge moon count carries with it many gameplay implications beyond just a streamlined structure though. The levels themselves have to be designed around holding all the moons that the game contains. In Odyssey, you'll explore kingdoms that are chock full of things to find. I'll dig more into them specifically in just a minute, but let's stick with the moons for now. Each kingdom contains dozens of moons, way more than a level would previously. Now, a lot of these kingdoms are pretty sizable, but not proportionate to the number of moons they contain. This means that you're going to be finding moons very often. Seriously, they're all over the place. You can find one in a bush, under a rock, in here, over there. You're likely just a few feet away from a moon at any given time. The results of this many collectibles to find are a little complicated. The frequency with which you find moons leads to a reduced rush of endorphins when you actually grab one. It just doesn't feel like it means as much as grabbing a star at the end of some tough level or cool secret. It was literally just under that rock. Some moons are simply purchased from a shop in each kingdom. Now, there are still moons that feel more substantial, typically signaled by the fact that you can actually acquire 3 at once, known as a multi-moon. These are always a blast to acquire and follow the 3D Mario structure we've come to expect. There are also plenty of moons tucked away in hidden rooms that act as bite-sized platforming challenges, which are also a ton of fun. I don't want to make it sound like hunting down moons isn't enjoyable. It absolutely is. Very much so, in fact. But the process of snagging each one just feels a little less special than it once did. But let's talk a bit more about the places in which you're doing the snagging, the kingdoms themselves. These are Super Mario Odyssey's playgrounds and are bursting at the seams with creativity. Despite all being located on the same planet, they feature a ton of variety and cover all the standard Mario themes. You've got a desert level, snow level, water level, but also some more unique and experimental areas too, like the standout Metro Kingdom, better known as New Donk City. Almost every kingdom features small sections of 2D platforming that transform Mario back to his 8-bit days. It's a lovely homage and a mechanic I'm really glad the game is willing to revisit so much. The amount of zany ideas inside Nintendo rivals any other developer out there, especially when considering how many they must have to cut. Or maybe the secret to Mario's medium-leading creativity is attributable to the fact that Nintendo permisses what many other devs would leave on the cutting room floor. Either way, there's a ton of cool stuff to see here. In classic Mario fashion, Odyssey is completely comfortable with introducing a mechanic that could support an entire game and then ditching it forever after just a few minutes. That's a true sign of confidence, which this game has in spades. Interestingly, each kingdom also features various outfits that Mario can wear. He's been pretty strict with his dress code over the years, so to see Mario in so many different styles of clothing can be a little bit jarring. It's interesting as well that Zelda's contemporary release, Breath of the Wild, also features a ton of different wardrobe options for Link. I guess Nintendo was really compelled by fashion in this era. While Link's articles affected gameplay, Mario's are purely cosmetic, although some are required to unlock specific moons. By and large though, you can just stick with your personal favorite. The kingdoms vary in size, with some featuring some of the largest levels ever presented in a Mario game. It's a lot of freedom, and feels like Mario could just be 1 or 2 games away from testing out a fully open world. Not sure how well that would necessarily work, but I suppose that's a question for another day. Some of the kingdoms are structured a little more traditionally, but by and large, the scope and space to explore is fairly unprecedented. This leads me to the element of the game that I feel most conflicted about. In either of the Galaxy games, each star was preceded by a level that felt tailor-made. Every galaxy was filled with gripping platforming with the occasional larger planet to facilitate a little more exploration. Reaching each star felt like a genuine accomplishment and immediately made you want to jump back in and find the next one. A long play session of either Galaxy game was filled with dynamic, varied, awe-inspiring platforming that never let up, but a long session of Odyssey looks different. Here, finding many of the game's moons is a more contemplative process, with your time spent carefully sifting through a kingdom to turn up as many moons as you can. Thanks to a very exploratory Toad, you can mark the moons you haven't found yet on your map for a small fee. These X's make finding each moon more manageable and helps quell the temptation to just Google them, but the fact remains that, in my opinion, fiddling around each point of interest until you find the desired moon just pales in comparison to the non-stop joyride of a galaxy. Again, the process is still fun, but it's different, and about halfway through the game, I decided to stop looking for every moon to ensure that I made the game as enjoyable as it could be. And that's a very important point to acknowledge here. You do not have to find every moon, not even close. If you just want to focus on moving forward as quickly as possible, you'll find just as gripping of a Mario game as any other. But I've 100%ed past 3D Mario games because I couldn't get enough. If either of the Galaxy games had more stars to find, I would have kept going, but here in Odyssey, I haven't gotten all of the moons, and I'm not sure that I ever will. I got my fill, which, to be fair, could be due to just how generous Odyssey is with content. I think this matter could have been addressed by tying moon acquisition to more substantive progression. As it stands, moons mostly just unlock the next kingdom, but what if they could be spent on a new ability or stat for Mario? Maybe 25 moons could increase his max jump height. The idea may sound out there, but I think it would have made each moon a lot more exciting to acquire. Like I said, I feel conflicted about this element, not outwardly negative. It's just different, and I haven't quite settled on how I feel about it yet. There is one element here though that I just do not like, and it's the fact that Super Mario Odyssey lacks any kind of hub world. A hub feels so essential to me, which is likely due to my connection with Super Mario 64. In that game, Mario is free to explore Peach's castle in between levels, jumping into paintings when he's ready to find another star. While you're outside of the levels, you can run around to your heart's content. There's no time limit, no enemies for the most part, and on occasion, no music. It's a tranquil, immersive experience and made the game feel so distinct from all the Mario games that had come before it. Better yet, the castle is filled with secrets, like entire levels that can't be found without a willingness to dig a little deeper. The hub is an entire level in its own right. With Galaxy 2, it seemed as though Nintendo's interest in a hub was waning, which is further confirmed here in Odyssey. Your ship is minuscule by comparison, and while you can adorn it with decals and statues, there's no exploring to be done here. Maybe my love of the hub is a minority opinion, but I've always enjoyed being able to explore a neutral space that exists in between all of the levels. It makes everything feel so much more cohesive and cozy. Without it, each level is tied together with a simple menu that just can't achieve the same effect. This also leads to Odyssey feeling like it lacks a certain identity. If I think of Sunshine, I immediately picture the sunny paradise of Isle Delfino. Galaxy elicits imagery of stars and planets. When I think of Odyssey though, I'm not quite sure what the core identity is. I'm not sure what through line should come to mind. If anything, this makes me all the more curious to see where Nintendo intends to take Mario next. I know I'm sounding a bit critical here, but you have to keep in mind that the 3D Mario platformers are some of my favorite video games of all time. Any new game in this family is standing on the shoulders of giants. Nostalgia also tends to paint a rosy filter across our memories, and I'm curious to see if my sterling perception of these past games holds strong as I begin to replay them. Perhaps Odyssey just needs some time to soak into my past and develop some nostalgia of its own. In the here and now, it's clear to me that Super Mario Odyssey is an excellent addition to this storied franchise. Mario controls better than he ever has through some of the most wondrous sights he's ever seen. After so many years away, it felt wonderful to put my overalls back on and get to jumping. This portly plumber just turned 40, but man, he still got it.